Part 1. You control your mind, not events. The storm isn't the problem. It's how you stand in the rain that breaks you or builds you. Life won't ask for your permission. But Stoicism, it gives you the only power that actually matters. You control your mind, not events. Scene 1. The promotion that never came. James had given 5 years to his company. He stayed late, skipped lunch, took extra roles. He believed effort guaranteed reward. Then came the promotion list. He clicked. He searched. His name wasn't there. Not even a thank you. No explanation. Nothing. He felt rage rising. He almost quit, almost cursed the entire system. But then, Scene 2. The inner conflict. Something whispered inside him. It wasn't loud, but it was clear. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. He didn't even know where he had read it, but that sentence stopped the storm. Scene 3. The shift begins. That night he wrote a list, 2 columns. What I can control, what I can't. His effort, yes. His emotions, yes. The company's politics, number. Other people's decisions, number. He felt clarity return, peace, inching closer. Scene 4. The training ground. James didn't quit. Instead, he trained. Every unfair moment became a weight. Every frustration, a representative. Every disappointment, a lesson. He stopped reacting. He started refining, and slowly others noticed. He wasn't louder. He was unshakable. Quote insert, midpoint reflection. Don't hope events will turn out the way you want. Welcome events in whichever way they happen. This is the path to peace. Epictetus. Scene 5. The unexpected call. 3 months later, the new director quit. The VP made a call directly to James. I've watched you, she said. How you handled disappointment, how you never broke character. She offered him a bigger role, a higher salary, more freedom. But James, he smiled. Not because he finally won, but because he had already mastered the bigger game. Closing, final reflection. James still faces storms, deadlines, drama, delays. But now, he smiles when it rains, because he's no longer trying to control the sky. He controls something far more powerful. His mind. What about you? What are you currently trying to control that doesn't belong to you? Let it go. Own your response. Breathe deeper. Stand taller. And if this message stirred something in you, subscribe. Because part 2 will show you why embracing discomfort makes you unstoppable. Embrace discomfort. 5,000 words. Jongnam, Susak, Truyenkam. Voiceover script, Cho 11 Labs. Prompt An Okwoi Bai. Hook opening. Most people pray for comfort. The Stoic, he prays for resilience. Because comfort builds habits. But discomfort? That forges character. This is the story of how one man lost everything and found something far greater. In pain. Act 1. The fall. From 6 figures to nothing. Scene 1. The high life. Ethan had it all. At 34, he was vice president at a fintech startup in Chicago. A corner office. 7-figure options. Tesla in the parking lot. Yoga at 6 a.m. Caviar by 8 p.m. But beneath the polished routines, there was one thing Ethan hadn't faced in years. Hardship. Most people aren't weak. They're just untested. David Goggins. One winter morning, the CEO called a meeting. Funding collapsed. The company was shutting down, effective immediately. Ethan was stunned. No warning, no parachute, no pride, just silence. Scene 2. The ego dies. First, for weeks, he couldn't leave his apartment. He stared at LinkedIn for hours. Every job title felt like a reminder of who he used to be. Discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. Susan David. Then came the eviction notice. The Tesla, gone. So was the gym, the friends, and the confidence. All that remained was Ethan. And for the first time in years, he had to meet himself. Act 2, the slow rebuild, choosing pain scene. 3, the job nobody wanted. Ethan took a job washing dishes at a diner in Southside Chicago. 12-hour shifts, greasy clothes, minimum wage. He kept his head down, avoided old friends, told no one. We must undergo a hard winter training and not rush into things for which we haven't prepared. Epictetus. But something strange happened. The pain of being ignored started to feel like peace. He had no image to protect, only work to do. And that was freedom. Scene 4, a lesson in the kitchen. One night the head chef, Jamal, noticed him. "You were someone before this, weren't you?" Ethan nodded. "Good, now be someone because of this." Ethan blinked. Jamal said nothing more. But those 10 words hit deeper than any podcast ever had. Scene 5, redefining strength. Each day, Ethan scrubbed faster, lifted heavier, focused longer. He started journaling again, reading Marcus Aurelius on breaks, taking cold showers at dawn, not to punish himself, to sharpen himself. We do not rise to the level of our hopes. We fall to the level of our training. Archilochus. The discomfort became his training ground. Act 3, the rise, comfort is a trap scene. 6, the return. Months passed. Ethan returned to tech, but as a different man. He no longer sought titles. He sought impact. He didn't chase validation. He chased values. He joined a nonprofit fintech building solutions for underserved communities. Smaller pay, bigger mission. And for the first time in his life, he didn't flinch in hard conversations because the heat of the kitchen had prepared him for the fire of leadership. Scene 7, the unexpected test. One day, a partner deal fell apart. Investors panicked. Team morale dropped. All eyes turned to Ethan, but he didn't break. We adapt, we pivot, we endure. He wasn't the guy who talked about Stoicism anymore. He was Stoic. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Epictetus, Scene 8. The inner revolution. Years later, Ethan would say, "My life didn't change the day I made $1 million. It changed the day I washed dishes and stopped wishing for life to be easy, because comfort had made him soft, but discomfort made him unbreakable." Final lesson. You're not weak, you're just comfortable. Comfort creates illusions. Discomfort reveals truth. The Stoics didn't seek pain for pain's sake. They embraced it to prepare for what life throws without mercy. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Seneca. You don't need to suffer to grow, but you need to stop running from the hard. Call to action, CTA. What's one uncomfortable thing you've been avoiding? Start it, face it, choose it before it chooses you. Subscribe now, because in part 3 we'll reveal why detachment from outcome is the greatest freedom you'll ever feel. Part 3, detach from the outcome. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. You can control the effort, but not the outcome. A Stoic doesn't chase certainty. He shows up, he does the work, and he releases everything else. Today we enter one of the hardest Stoic lessons, How to give everything and still let go. Act 1. The athlete who needed a gold medal to feel enough. Scene 1. The rise at 9, Claire ran faster than the boys. At 15, she was state champion. By 18, Olympic scouts were watching. Her life was training. Ice baths, 5 a.m. sprints. Every calorie counted, every hour logged. Obsessed, and they said. She smiled. Of course I am. She wasn't chasing a medal. She was chasing certainty. Scene 2. The sacrifice. While others partied, Claire trained. No birthdays, no holidays, no off days. All or nothing. Failure is not an option. Gold or go home. She repeated those words like scripture. Until they weren't motivation. They were chains. Scene 3. The trial Olympic trials. Final lap. Claire's in second. 10 meters left. She pushes. She dives. She misses gold. By 0.04 seconds. No medal, no interviews, no celebration. She collapses on the track, not from pain, from identity loss. Who am I if I'm not the best? Act 2, the storm inside the silent scene. 4, the breakdown back home. Claire disappears, deletes social, ignores friends, avoids mirrors. She replays the race 1,000 times. If I had leaned sooner, if I hadn't eaten that meal, but there's no if in reality, only what is. Scene 5, the unexpected mentor. At a quiet coffee shop, Claire meets a man, 70s, calm, radiates presence. He used to coach Olympians before cancer took his wife and career. He says little, just slides a book across the table. The Discourses, Epictetus. Claire laughs. You think philosophy helps athletes? No, he says, but it helps humans, especially the ones who lose. Scene 6, the inner awakening. Claire reads, slowly. At first, nothing sticks. Then this line hits. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Epictetus. She stops, reads it again and again. I controlled my effort. I never controlled the medal. I was never promised gold. The tension in her chest softens. Act 3, becoming stoic and free. Scene 7, training without outcome. Claire returns to the track, but something's changed. She doesn't stare at the finish line. She stares at her form, her rhythm, her breath. Focus on the process, not the prize. Ryan Holiday. She trains just as hard, but this time, she enjoys the work. Scene 8, teaching what she learned. Claire starts speaking to younger athletes. She doesn't teach speed, she teaches freedom. Run because you can. Run because it's beautiful, but never run to become enough. You already are. One of her athletes wins state gold. He dedicates it to her. She smiles. But her joy isn't tied to his result. It's tied to the fact that he's free too. Scene 9, the stoic closing. Years later, Claire still runs. No medals, no pressure, no crowd. Just breathe and motion and peace. Happiness and freedom begin the moment you stop needing things to go your way. Epictetus. She became the best version of herself, not when she won, but when she let go. Final lesson. Life rewards the bold, but not always in the way you expect. You can show up, train, speak, love, but outcomes, that's never been yours. You own the input. Let the world take care of the rest. Call to action. What are you clinging to today? A result? A response? A reward? Let it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you do. Subscribe now. In Part 4, we'll face mortality and learn why remembering death is the key to truly living. Part 8. Rehearse death, live fully by facing the end. Stoic principle number 8. Remember death daily and you'll fear nothing. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Marcus Aurelius. Most people run from death. The Stoics? They sit beside it every day. Not because they love dying, but because it's the fastest way to start living. Asked 1. The man who lived half alive. Scene 1. The clock Daniel was a corporate lawyer. He billed 90 hours a week, owned 3 watches, never saw a sunset. He kept saying, someday I'll slow down. Then one day he fainted in court. Routine tests. One unexpected result. Stage 4 cancer. 6 months left. Scene 2. The spiral. He locked himself away, ignored friends, deleted his calendar. He sat on the balcony and realized he'd never just watched the stars. That night, someone left a book outside his door. Meditations. Inside was a note. This saved me. Maybe it'll guide you too. Asked 2. The turning point. Scene 3. The journal. Daniel read slowly. One line hit him like thunder. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. Marcus Aurelius. He whispered, so what have I been doing all these years? Scene 4. The practice. Daniel started what he called death practice. Each morning he'd ask, if today were my last, who would I forgive? What would I stop pretending to love? What would I no longer delay? He began walking without his phone, calling his sister, writing poetry, eating slowly, and watching the stars. Scene 5. The shift. He didn't chase a miracle. He chased meaning. He started helping others with terminal diagnoses, find stillness in the final moments. He told one man, we don't beat death. We just stop letting it keep us from living. Act 3. The man who started living. Scene 6. The birthday on his 39th birthday, Daniel wrote, I don't need more time. I need fewer excuses. He threw a dinner, invited everyone he'd once ignored, spoke only once. I used to fear death. Now I fear a life unlived. Scene 7. The final days. 3 months later, he passed quietly. In his home, candle lit, Marcus Aurelius by his bedside. On the table beside him, a note that read, rehearse death, and you'll never forget to live. Choose final reflection. You are dying. So is everyone you love. This is not a curse. It's a compass. The Stoics didn't remind themselves of death to become dark. They did it to become clear. Remembering death gives your days weight. It ends excuses. It frees you. Yes, call to action. Tomorrow is not promised. This breath is. So pause, breathe, and whisper, Memento Mori. Subscribe now, because in Part 9, we'll step into the most uncomfortable discipline of all, facing poverty on purpose. Again, with power. Part 5, Voluntary Poverty, Choose Less to Become More. Stoic Principle Number 5, Why Having Nothing Can Teach You Everything. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. Set aside a number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, and say to yourself, is this the condition I feared? Seneca. We think losing it all is the worst-case scenario, but what if that fear is the real prison? This is the story of a man who gave up everything on purpose and gained something no wealth can buy, inner freedom. Act 1, the success that didn't feel like success. Scene 1, the applause. Victor was a best-selling author, TED Talks, podcasts, private jets. On stage, he preached simplicity. Off stage, he had 5 watches, 4 assistants, and a $6,000 coffee machine. But every night, in a quiet hotel room, he scrolled and felt empty. I had everything, except the ability to sit with myself. Scene 2, the breaking point. One night, after a standing ovation, Victor walked backstage and sobbed. Not out of joy, out of fraud. "I'm not the man I pretend to be," he whispered. "I talk about freedom, but I'm addicted to comfort." He remembered something his grandfather once said: "You don't own your wealth if you're terrified of losing it." Act 2, the choice to have nothing. Scene 3, the challenge. Victor decided to vanish. No announcement, no email list, no break. He packed one bag, canceled every luxury, moved into a rented room, 300 square feet, no TV, no Wi-Fi, and for 30 days, he lived on $5 a day. Scene 4, the withdrawal. The first week was hell. No green juice, no Uber, no status. He walked in silence, ate beans, slept on a mattress on the floor. Is this what I feared? Seneca. Yes, at first. Scene 5, the discovery. By day 12, something shifted. He woke up peaceful. His mind was quieter. He noticed birdsong. He remembered old stories. He started writing again, not for likes, for truth. He wrote, "When there's nothing left to impress, what's left is real." Cuscat 3, the return scene. 6, the clarity. On day 30, Victor didn't rush back. He gave away his designer clothes, canceled all but one card, sold his penthouse, moved into a small cottage, and started speaking again. But only once a month. No ads, no spin, just truth. Scene 7, the teaching. He taught students not how to get rich, but how to live without fear of losing anything. Practice being poor, he told them, and no one can ever buy your silence again. They didn't believe him until he pulled out a Stoic coin. On it, the engraving read, "Is this what you feared?" Scene 8, the ending. Years later, Victor was invited back to speak at the same TED stage. He walked on barefoot, simple robe, no microphone, just his voice. "I used to fear poverty. Now I fear never truly living." Voluntary poverty doesn't make you less. It reveals how little you needed in the first place. Final reflection. Fear of loss is the leash. Voluntary poverty is the key. The Stoics didn't glorify suffering. They trained their minds to be stronger than circumstance. You don't need to lose everything. Just try living with less, to see what you still are when the labels fade. Call to action. For one day, try living as if you had nothing. No status, no filters, no noise. Then ask yourself, is this what I feared? Subscribe now, because in part 6, we'll unlock the strength of silence, the loudest power of all. Part 6, silence is strength, speak less, live more. Stoic principle number 6, why power doesn't shout. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. Epictetus. In a world obsessed with volume, the Stoic chooses silence, not out of weakness, but because he knows. The loudest voice in the room isn't the strongest. The calmest is. Act 1, the rumor that could have destroyed a man scene. 1, the accusation. Lucius was a senator in ancient Rome, respected, principled, quiet. One morning a false rumor spreads. Lucius is plotting treason. The Senate turns on him. Even his allies distance themselves. Everyone expects a fiery denial, a public rebuttal, a dramatic defense. Lucius says nothing. Scene 2. The frenzy whispers multiply. Scrolls are burned. Panic spreads. Lucius keeps showing up, sits in silence, listens carefully, speaks only when asked. His enemies grow louder. He grows stiller. A young aide asks, "Why don't you defend yourself?" Lucius replies, "Truth is not impatient. Let the noise pass." Act 2. The philosopher who taught through quiet scene. 3. Seneca's advice. That evening, Lucius visits Seneca. They walk slowly through the marble corridor. Lucius vents, "If I say nothing, they'll believe the lie." Seneca stops, touches the wall. "Do you hear that?" Lucius listens. "Nothing." "Exactly," says Seneca. "Marble doesn't speak, but it lasts longer than any voice. Be like the wall. Endure. Outlive the noise." Scene 4. The waiting for days. Lucius is ridiculed, but he doesn't react. He speaks calmly in meetings, votes with integrity. Eventually, the man who spread the rumor is caught in a bribery scandal. Lucius had waited, and won without saying a word. Act 3. Modern noise. Ancient calm. Scene 5. The CEO who stayed still jumped to present day. Nora, a tech CEO, faces online attacks, false claims, angry hashtags. Everyone tells her to clap back, go viral, defend herself. She writes one post: "I choose results over reactions." Integrity doesn't panic. Then she goes back to building. 6 months later, the truth wins. The noise dies. Silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Scene 6. The father who changed his son. A father and teenage son argue constantly. One day the father stops shouting. He just sits, listens, breathes. Days later the son knocks on his door. "Dad, you listening made me want to talk." No speech, no advice, just space, final reflection. In a shallow world, silence is depth. In a loud world, silence is rebellion. In a world of fear, silence is power. The Stoics didn't avoid speech. They honored it. By making it sacred. Speak less, mean more. Let your silence echo longer than any shout. Call to action. In your next argument, don't prove. Don't persuade. Just pause. Let your stillness shake the world. Subscribe. Because in part 7, you'll learn how to love your fate, even when it breaks your heart. Part 7, Amor Fati, love your fate. Stoic principle number 7, don't just accept fate, embrace it. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. Don't seek for things to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do. Epictetus. Most people endure hardship. The Stoic embraces it, not because it's easy, but because he trusts that every event, even pain, is part of the fire that forges him. This is the story of a man who lost everything, but refused to lose his gratitude. Act 1, the life that unraveled. Scene 1. The crash. Julian was 27, new job, engaged, healthy. One rainy night on the way home from work, a truck ran a red light. His car flipped twice. When he woke up in the hospital, his legs didn't move, and the doctor's face said it all. Scene 2. The questions. Why me? What did I do to deserve this? Will I ever feel whole again? His fiancée visited twice, then stopped coming. He stared at the ceiling for days, then weeks. The future he had built collapsed like dust. He thought about ending it. Until a nurse left a book on his tray. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Act 2. The return of Marcus. Scene 3. The line that changed him. One sentence was circled in red. The blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything thrown into it. Marcus Aurelius. Julian closed the book, whispered, "Can this wheelchair become my fire?" Scene 4. The first step of acceptance. He started doing something small each day, writing, journaling, reading Stoicism aloud. He stopped saying, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now?" He imagined Marcus beside him whispering, "Don't curse the flame, become it." Scene 5. The mindset shift. He began rehab with intensity. "This is my fate," he told the nurse. "I don't fight it, I build with it." She smiled and said, "Then you're already healing." Act 3. The man who became unbreakable. Scene 6. Speaking through pain. Months later, Julian started giving talks. Not about tragedy, about transformation. He didn't pretend it was easy, but he showed others. If you can stop hating what happened, you might just find the strength to use it. Scene 7. Love your fate. Julian tattooed 2 words on his arm. Amor fati, love your fate, not accept it, not tolerate it, love it. Because even the worst day is still part of your story, and the fire doesn't burn you, it refines you. Final reflection. You don't need a perfect life. You need powerful meaning. The Stoic doesn't ask, "Why did this happen to me?" He asks, "How can I rise with it?" So love your fate, because if you can love it, you can use it. Call to action. Look at your life today, not the dream, the real one. Now whisper, "Amor fati," then subscribe. Because in Part 8, we'll explore how facing death teaches you how to live. Prompt An, Part B, Moi Sao Chin, Phong Kak, Stoic Journal, Tong Kak Ja, An Sang Tram, Goi Sui Tuong So Sak, San Chao Len. Hilo Prompt Chuan Sin, Mott. The crash, dim city street in the rain, flipped car in middle of road. In the fog, Marcus Aurelius appears as stone figure watching from sidewalk. Cold stone tones. Scene 2. Hospital grief man, in hospital bed, staring at ceiling. Harsh fluorescent light casting long shadow. Marcus Aurelius, bust in window reflection. Grayscale texture, Scene 3. Meditations, page close-up of Meditations. Book with circled quote, "The blazing fire." Marcus Aurelius, faintly visible in reflection of hospital window. Symbolic depth, Scene 4. Morning journaling, paralyzed man journaling by sunrise window. Marcus Aurelius appears in the soft light reflection. Background in marble tones. Scene 5. Rehab man in wheelchair pushing through hospital corridor. Marcus Aurelius, stone bus watching from a corner ledge. Gritty and inspiring. Scene 6. TED Talk style man in wheelchair on stage with dark background, one spotlight. Quote, "Love your fate" behind him in engraved marble. Cinematic tone. Scene 7. Tattoo reveal, close-up of arm with tattoo. Amor fati. Background is faint marble wall with Marcus Aurelius silhouette etched in. Deep grayscale CTA black marble backdrop. Red glowing subscribe button. Quote above carved in stone. Love your fate. Rise from it. Part 8. Rehearse death, live fully by facing the end. Stoic principle number 8. Remember death daily and you'll fear nothing. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Marcus Aurelius. Most people run from death. The Stoics? They sit beside it every day. Not because they love dying, but because it's the fastest way to start living. Asked 1. The man who lived half alive, Scene 1. The clock Daniel was a corporate lawyer. He billed 90 hours a week, owned 3 watches, never saw a sunset. He kept saying, "Someday, I'll slow down." Then one day he fainted in court. Routine tests. One unexpected result. Stage 4 cancer. 6 months left. Scene 2. The spiral. He locked himself away, ignored friends, deleted his calendar. He sat on the balcony and realized he'd never just watched the stars. That night, someone left a book outside his door. Meditations. Inside was a note. This saved me. Maybe it'll guide you too. Act 2. The turning point. Scene 3. The journal. Daniel read slowly. One line hit him like thunder. It is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. Marcus Aurelius. He whispered, so what have I been doing all these years? Scene 4. The practice. Daniel started what he called death practice. Each morning he'd ask, if today were my last, who would I forgive? What would I stop pretending to love? What would I no longer delay? He began walking without his phone, calling his sister, writing poetry, eating slowly, and watching the stars. Scene 5. The shift. He didn't chase a miracle. He chased meaning. He started helping others with terminal diagnoses find stillness in the final moments. He told one man, we don't beat death. We just stop letting it keep us from living. Act 3. The man who started living. Scene 6. The birthday on his 39th birthday, Daniel wrote, I don't need more time. I need fewer excuses. He threw a dinner, invited everyone he'd once ignored, spoke only once. I used to fear death. Now I fear a life unlived. Scene 7. The final days. 3 months later, he passed quietly. In his home, candle lit, Marcus Aurelius by his bedside. On the table beside him, a note that read, rehearse death, and you'll never forget to live. Choose final reflection. You are dying. So is everyone you love. This is not a curse. It's a compass. The Stoics didn't remind themselves of death to become dark. They did it to become clear. Remembering death gives your days weight. It ends excuses. It frees you. Yes, call to action. Tomorrow is not promised. This breath is. So pause, breathe, and whisper, Memento Mori. Subscribe now, because in Part 9, we'll step into the most uncomfortable discipline of all, facing poverty on purpose. Again, with power. Part 9. Discomfort is training. Seek it before life forces. It's Stoic principle. Number 9. The easy path weakens. The hard path awakens. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Seneca. You think pain is the problem, but the Stoic knows comfort is. Today we meet a man who trained himself to endure what most people collapse under. Not because he wanted to suffer, but because he knew the fire is coming anyway. Train now. Act 1. The man who had everything and lost control. Scene 1. The complacency. Reed was an elite investment banker. Private jets, first-class meals. His skin was soft. His spine was soft. He built his life to never feel pain again. Then came the recession. His firm collapsed, and within 6 months, so did his marriage, his body, his mind. He sat in a 2-room apartment, eating instant noodles, terrified of a power bill. Scene 2. The reflection on his worst day, he found a podcast. It featured a philosopher named Epictetus, a former slave, who said, the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. Reed whispered, "I've only been training for ease. No wonder I shattered when things got hard." Question 2. Training begins. Scene 3, the cold shower day 1. Reed took a cold shower, not because it was healthy, but because it was hard. If I can choose discomfort, I can stop fearing it. Scene 4, the empty plate. He fasted for 24 hours. No juice, no posts, no applause, just hunger and clarity. He remembered Seneca's words, "Set aside days to taste poverty and ask, is this what I feared?" Scene 5, the walk he gave up Uber. Walked 10 miles to meetings. He sweated, but felt stronger, clearer, untouchable. He smiled at a man begging on the street and whispered, "You're tougher than most of the people I used to work with." Act 3, the man who chose the hard way scene. 6, the invitation. Reed was offered a cushy job again. Corner office, chauffeur. He declined. Instead, he opened a free workshop, Comfort Detox, where he taught others to do hard things before life forced them to. Scene 7, his mantra. He wrote on the wall behind him, "Cold water, empty stomach, long walks." That's how I remember. I can't be broken. Final reflection. Most people beg for ease. The Stoic trains for the storm. You don't rise in chaos if you only rehearse comfort. Discomfort isn't suffering, it's preparation. Stop fearing the hard days. Become harder to break. Call to action. Choose something uncomfortable right now. Cold shower, skip a meal, walk instead of drive. Train while it's optional, so when it's not, you don't flinch. Subscribe. In part 10, we'll meet the shadow that follows every life, anger, and how to master it. Part 10, Mastering Anger, Turn Fire into Focus. Stoic Principle number 10, anger is a fire. Control it or burn with it. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Marcus Aurelius. Anger is fast, but power lies in patience. This is the story of a man who had every reason to explode, but chose mastery instead. Because the Stoic doesn't fight emotion, he trains it. ACT 1. The insult that could have started a war scene 1. The ambushed Cassius was a Roman commander, respected, ruthless, controlled. Until one day in the forum, a rival senator stood and called him a coward in armor. Everyone gasped. Cassius stepped forward, hand on his sword. He could have drawn blood, but instead, he paused. Scene 2, the stillness. He walked away, not because he was afraid, but because he knew, if I lash out, I let him write my character. That night he visited Seneca. The Stoic stood by the fire, didn't even turn around. "Did you win?" Seneca asked. Cassius said, "I didn't strike." Seneca smiled. "Then you won twice." ACT 2, the anger practice scene. 3, the daily flame. Cassius began training himself to pause. Each morning he sat in silence, then asked, "Who might provoke me today? What insult could shake me? How do I choose to respond?" He imagined it all and prepared to stay calm. You don't defeat anger in the moment. You defeat it before it arrives. Scene 4, the real test. 1 month later, a soldier failed orders, nearly cost lives. Cassius stood before him, burning, then remembered Seneca's words. If you wish to be feared, be silent. If you wish to be respected, be just. He breathed and reassigned him. Without rage, the camp grew quieter, stronger, wiser. Act 3, The Legacy of Self-Control. Scene 5, the philosopher General Cassius became known as a commander who never raised his voice, but never lost control. Enemies feared his silence more than other men's swords, because it wasn't weakness, it was precision. Scene 6, the final quote. When asked his secret, Cassius said, "I rehearse anger like a storm, and I build myself like a mountain. Let the wind scream, I do not move." Final reflection. Anyone can shout, few can remain still. Anger is easy, but mastery, that's earned. The Stoics weren't emotionless, they were emotional warriors who chose their battles and always won the one within. Call to action. Pause, think of what made you angry this week. Now ask, did it deserve my peace? Probably not. Next time, breathe, step back, and remember, let the wind scream. I do not move. Subscribe. In Part 11, we'll learn how to stop explaining and start embodying Stoic power. Part 11, don't explain, embody. Stoic principle number 11. Your life is louder than your words. Hook opening, 0 to 30 seconds. Don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Epictetus. Everyone talks, the Stoic walks. Today's story is about a young man who tried to preach power until a philosopher showed him what real power looks like, without a single word. Seat 1, the student who spoke too much. Scene 1, the lecture. Damon was 21, a rising star, studied Stoicism for 3 years, knew every quote, posted threads, corrected others online. One day he stood to teach in a public square. He quoted Epictetus, Marcus, Seneca. People listened, but no one followed. He was frustrated. Why don't they get it? He asked. Scene 2, the philosopher. An old man watched silently nearby. Rough robe, cracked sandals. He said nothing. After the crowd left, he approached Damon. "You speak like a Stoic," the man said, "but do you sweat like one? Do you suffer like one? Do you serve like one?" Damon was stunned. "Who are you?" The man smiled. "A former slave, a student of Epictetus. I learned to be Stoic by carrying water, not quotes." Act 2, the shift from speech to silence. Scene 3, the choice. The old man invited Damon to live with him for 30 days. No talking, only observing, only doing. They rose at dawn, chopped wood, washed clothes, fed the poor. No debates, no lectures, just presence. Scene 4. The test. One day, a drunk man screamed at Damon in the street. The old man stood beside him. Damon stayed silent, did not defend, did not correct. Later, the old man said, "If you need to explain it, you haven't become it yet." Truth wears no signs, it walks. Act 3, the man who embodied his ideas. Scene 5, the quiet power. Damon returned home. He stopped posting daily quotes. He started cleaning his mother's dishes. He apologized to a friend. He listened more, spoke less. Within weeks, others said, "Something changed in you." He just nodded. Scene 6, the final walk. 1 year later, Damon visited his old teacher, brought no speech, just bread, and sat beside him by the fire. The old man finally spoke. "Now you're ready to speak again, but this time they'll listen because your silence already said everything." Final reflection. Don't explain, embody. The Stoics weren't preachers, they were walkers. They were servers. They were witnesses to truth without ever shouting it. When your life becomes the message, you don't need the microphone. Call to action this week. Try this. Say less. Serve more. Let others see your values before they hear them. Subscribe. Because in Part 12, we bring everything home with the final Stoic truth. Live according to nature. Part 12, Live according to nature, find peace in simplicity. Stoic principle number 12. Alignment is freedom. Simplicity is power. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius. The final Stoic principle is not about self-control, discomfort, or death. It's about harmony, because the deepest power comes not from fighting life, but flowing with it. Act 1, the man who tried to be everything. Scene 1, the struggle. Ezra was 35, engineer, startup founder, father, trying to be everything for everyone. Productivity, hustle, biohacking, optimizing, always chasing better. But no peace, no stillness, no joy. One night lying awake at 3 a.m., he whispered, "I've built everything except a life I want to live." Scene 2, the forest retreat. Burnout, he booked 3 days in a forest cabin. No signal, no plans, no podcasts, just birds, wind, and a leather copy of Meditations. Page 1, live in accordance with nature. He closed the book and stared at the trees. Is that what I've forgotten? Act 2, what nature taught him. Scene 3, stillness. Ezra woke at dawn. No alarm, no caffeine. Just breathe. He listened, to wind in the trees, to his heartbeat. For the first time in years, he felt present. Scene 4, letting go. He stopped wearing his smartwatch, stopped logging calories, stopped checking steps. He wrote in his journal, nature doesn't rush, but nothing gets left undone. He remembered Marcus's words, look within. Within is the fountain of good. Scene 5, the stream. He sat beside a stream, noticed the flow, the bends, the quiet strength of water that doesn't fight obstacles. It flows around them. He whispered, maybe that's strength, not control, but alignment. Act 3, returning different scene. 6, simpler life. Ezra returned home, sold half his clothes, deleted 8 apps, took daily walks, planted herbs with his kids, said no more often, and slowly peace arrived, not from doing more, but from doing what mattered. Scene 7, living the principle. He no longer needed big goals to feel real. He just needed to feel aligned. His breath, his body, his values. One direction, one rhythm, one peace. Final reflection. Stoicism doesn't make you hard. It makes you whole. The goal was never to conquer the world. It was to stop fighting yourself. Live simply, live honestly, live slowly, and let the world flow through you, not around you. That's nature. That's freedom. Call to action. Stop right now. Put your phone down. Breathe. Step outside. Touch something real. And ask yourself, am I living in alignment or in resistance? Subscribe. This may be the end of the series, but it's the beginning of your real life.